$191 billion.
It's a number that just kind of hangs in the air, doesn't it?
It's staggering. I mean, just to put that in perspective for everyone, you're talking about the GDP of a country, like Hungary or Kuwait.
A mid-sized developed nation.
Yeah, and that is the value of the creator economy right now as we're speaking in 2026. And if you look at the projections from DemandSage, which are usually pretty solid.
They're usually on the money.
They are. We're looking at $500 billion by 2030. That's trillion with a T.
It completely reframes how you have to think about what a creator is. It really does. I think for so long we were all stuck in this, 2015 mental model?
Oh, absolutely. The teenager in the bedroom with the ring light.
The ring light, doing a 15-second dance for a viral sound clip, you know?
Right, the hobbyist phase. Or maybe the I'm just doing this for fun until I get a real job kind of thing.
Exactly. But you don't get to $500 billion with hobbyists. That's not a cottage industry anymore. You're talking about a massive global infrastructure.
A global workforce. The numbers say 207 million people.
207 million. That's a population bigger than Brazil. It's bigger than the UK, France, and Germany combined.
And that's really the core mission of our deep dive today. We want to just, take apart that old image. We need to get under the hood and look at the actual machinery that's humming away beneath that $191 billion number.
Yeah.
Because the number has gone way, way up, but the whole vibe of it, the way it all works, has fundamentally changed.
It's a pivot. It's a huge pivot from quantity to quality. Or to use the industry jargon, it's a shift from chasing attention to building retention.
Retention. See, that's a word that sounds so corporate. But in this world, it means something really intimate.
It does, and maybe even a little dark.
I think so. Because when your entire business model changes from how do I get 1 million eyeballs on this one ad to how do I get 1,000 people to trust me, like deeply trust me.
The product changes.
The product changes completely. You're not selling entertainment anymore. You're selling you. You're selling your life, your experiences, your trauma.
Which is exactly where we're going to land today. We're going to unpack the really complex ethical gymnastics these creators have to perform to monetize that kind of intimacy. We've got this fascinating and, I'll be honest, slightly disturbing academic thesis from Lund University.
Right. It looks at how influencers are using this exact trust, this intimacy, to sell aesthetic surgery.
It's the ultimate test case, isn't it? Where is that line between sharing your journey and literally commercializing your own body?
And we've got a really great stack of sources to help us build that bridge. We have the hard market data, the numbers from DemandSage and the Circle blog. That'll give us the 2026 landscape.
The state of the nation, so to speak.
Exactly. Then we're going to do a bit of digital archaeology. We'll dig into Wikipedia to find, the patient zero of blogging. Where did this all start?
And then there's the thesis, which I think we should flag for everyone. It uses some pretty heavy-hitting sociological frameworks.
Yeah, you mentioned that, Boltanski and Covenant.
Right. Their theory of worlds of justification. Now, it sounds very academic, I know, but I promise you, once you get the concept, you will never, ever look at an Instagram caption the same way again. It's like seeing the code behind the Matrix.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we're going from the very first blog post in history all the way to the surgical table. It's quite a journey.
It is.
So let's start at the beginning, because I think we all just take for granted that sharing is this default human behavior now. But it's not. It had to be invented. Someone had to do it first.
They did. And to really feel the scale of 2026, you have to feel how small it started. We have to rewind the clock way back, before the World Wide Web as we know it. We're talking 1983.
1983. Wow. So we're talking what? Green text on a black screen, command prompts, no pictures, no videos.
We're talking Usenet.
Usenet.
Yeah.
That name always makes me think of an old sci-fi movie, like War Games or something.
It basically was. I mean, it was this decentralized, distributed discussion system. There was no single server, just this network of computers passing messages back and forth. And in '83, there was this one news group called Mod Bobber.
Mod Bobber. Sounds like a secret government project.
It was run by a guy named Brian E. Redman. And here's the interesting thing. Mod wasn't a diary. He wasn't writing about his day. It was a curated list, a summary of interesting posts that Redman found on other parts of the net.
Wait. So the very first creator, the proto-blogger, he wasn't a writer. He was a curator.
Precisely. And that's such a crucial point. The original DNA of this whole economy isn't, I have something original to say. It's, I found something interesting that you should see. It's the act of being a filter.
The value is in the
The
selection.
selection, the taste. You saw the same thing again in 1987 with another group, rec.humor.funny.
Okay, that one's a bit more self-explanatory.
A bit, yeah. It was a moderated group for jokes. But someone, the moderator, had to decide what was actually funny enough to be included. That act of judgment, of selection, that's the first spark of what we now call creation in this space.
So taste and aggregation, that was the original value proposition.
It was. But then, of course, the big technological leap happens. Tim Berners-Lee comes along, invents the World Wide Web. And in 1992, he sets up what Encyclopedia Britannica calls the first blog.
But I'm guessing this wasn't a lifestyle blog.
Yeah.
Knowing Tim Berners-Lee, he probably wasn't posting about his breakfast.
No, not quite. It was basically a changelog. It was a running list of software updates for the World Wide Web project itself. It was purely functional.
Here's what we fixed today. Here's a new piece of documentation.
That was it. But the format, that core architecture chronological entries, with the newest one at the top, that's the skeleton of every blog, every news feed, every social media timeline we use today. It all comes from that.
That's the skeleton, okay. But where did the soul come from, the personality?
For that, you have to jump forward a couple of years. To 1994, you have to look at a guy named Justin Hall.
The Swarthmore student. Right, I remember reading about him.
Justin Hall is, for all intents and purposes, the first personal blogger. His site was called Justin's Links from the Underground. And for over a decade, he documented his life with what you can only call radical transparency.
And this is 1994. Most people didn't even have an email address. And this guy's just putting his entire personal life on a public server.
Everything. His relationships, his family problems, his experiments with drugs, his sexuality. It was the first real confessional use of the internet. It was the first time someone seemed to realize that the web could be a stage to perform the self.
And at the same time, from a purely technological perspective, you had things like the wearable wireless webcam.
Surveillance, that was the academic term for it.
Right. Surveillance is watching from above, like a security camera. Surveillance is watching from below. It's watching yourself.
And this guy, Steve Mann, in 1994, he's walking around with this huge, clunky equipment strapped all over his body, looking like some kind of budget cyborg, just to stream images from his daily life onto the web.
It's wild to think about because today, every single one of us has that exact technology in our pocket. We all practice surveillance every time we go on Instagram Live or FaceTime a friend. The backpack's just gone.
Totally. So these guys, they were the pioneers of the lifelog, but the language just hadn't caught up yet. The word didn't exist until 1997. Jorn Barger coined the term weblog, a log of the web, very literal.
And then came the happy accident.
The linguistic joke that changed everything. Peter Merholtz in 1999. In the sidebar of his site, he just jokingly breaks the word into we blog.
And just like that, it's a verb. It becomes an action, something you do. We blog.
And that matters. Verbs create agency. And right after that, a company called Pyra Labs launches a tool called Blogger. Google buys them a few years later, and suddenly the barrier to entry is zero. Anyone can blog.
So here's the thing I want to circle back to, though. The thing that you said about that early era that feels so relevant to 2026, you said was about threads.
Yes, this is so important. Early blogging was fundamentally conversational, but not in one place. It was about linking out.
The old blog rolls on the side of the page.
The blog rolls, the trackbacks. If I wrote a post on my blog, I would include a link to your blog. Your system would get an automatic notification, and you could write a response on your site, which would then link back to me. The conversation was distributed, happened across hundreds of different websites.
Which is such a contrast to what came next, right?
Yeah.
The social media era, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything became centralized. The conversation got pulled out of the open web and trapped inside the comments section.
And let's be honest, the comment section is usually a much angrier, shallower, more toxic environment.
No argument there.
And now, in 2026, the pendulum is swinging back. The big trend that the demand-side data points to is a rejection of that centralization. Creators are fleeing the comment sections and building their own spaces again.
Okay, so let's get into those numbers. 207 million creators globally. That's an unbelievable amount of noise. How does anyone even get heard?
Well, first, we have to parse that number a little. If we zoom in on just the U.S., the number is 162 million people who self-identify as a creator, which is, basically half the country. But the important distinction is between the hobbyist and the professional.
And the data says there are about 45 million professionals in the U.S.
Right. And of those 45 million, nearly half, 46.7%, are doing it full time.
So quick math.
Yeah.
You're talking about roughly 21 million people in the U.S. alone for whom this is their primary job, their sole occupation.
That's not a niche anymore. That's a major economic sector. It's bigger than the entire U.S. manufacturing sector.
And this is the big reality check for anyone listening who's thinking about quitting their job to start a YouTube channel. The data on income is brutal.
It's the starving artist story, just digitized. It takes the average creator 6.5 months to earn their very first dollar.
Not to make a living, not to pay rent, to make one single dollar.
$1. Think about that. That's over half a year of working for free. Making videos, writing newsletters, editing, marketing, all of it for nothing. That is a massive investment of sweat equity.
It's like giving yourself an unpaid internship with no guarantee of a job at the end.
That's a perfect way to put it. And even when you look at the people who are doing it full time, only about half of them earn enough from creating to actually support themselves.
So there's this huge chunk of this glamorous $191 billion economy that's actually being subsidized by personal savings or credit card debt or a partner with a stable job.
Absolutely. The idea that you just upload a viral video and buy a mansion is a fantasy from a bygone era. It's not a lottery ticket.
It's a career path now with a really high barrier to entry and a ton of risk.
The gold rush is over. We're in the settler phase now. You can't just pan for gold anymore. You have to build a farm. You have to build real infrastructure. And that leads us directly to the big business model shift.
The move from attention to intimacy.
Or, as the Circle blog report frames it, the move from rented land to owned land.
Let's break that down. What is rented land?
Rented land is your Instagram profile. It's your TikTok account. It's your YouTube channel. You don't own your audience there. You don't even really have access to them. The algorithm does.
You're just renting their attention for 30 seconds at a time.
Exactly. And if that algorithm changes tomorrow, which it does constantly and without notice, your entire business can just disappear. Your reach gets throttled and poof, it's gone.
The numbers from the Circle blog really back this up. 32% of creators now say that unreliable or declining social reach is one of their biggest business concerns. It's that volatility. You can't plan for the future. You can't get a mortgage based on TikTok views.
You can't. And the audience is feeling it too. The report has this great term for it, member burnout. People are just exhausted by the endless feed. The constant scrolling, the noise, the outrage, the ads. They want an exit.
So if they're leaving the rented land, where are they going?
They're going to owned land, private spaces, paid newsletters on Substack, private channels on Discord, dedicated communities on platforms like Circle, places where the creator, not the algorithm, is in control.
And this is where the actual money is being made in 2026.
Oh, the difference is night and day. The data is clear. 67% of new community members are still discovered on the big social apps, but the money, the actual transaction, happens on owned land. 88% of community builders are now monetizing through memberships.
88%. Compare that to the old influencer model, the sponsorship model.
It's a dying breed. Only 18% of creators say they primarily rely on ads and sponsorships now. Think about how huge that shift is. 5 years ago, the brand deal was everything. That was the goal. Now it's a side dish, if that. The main course is recurring revenue from your dedicated members.
To get someone to actually open their wallet and pay you $10, $20, $50 every single month, you have to offer more than just another video. The report kept mentioning this idea of transformation.
Outcome over output. That's the phrase of the year for this industry. The old model, the ad-supported model, was about output. I will post 3 videos a week. That was the promise.
You're selling volume.
You're selling volume. The new model is about outcome. Join my community, and I will help you become a better public speaker. I will guide you through your first marathon. I will teach you how to build a passive income stream. 69% of creators say that member transformation is their #1 growth strategy.
So the creator isn't just an entertainer anymore. They have to be a guide, a teacher.
A guide, a teacher, a community manager, a CEO, and a CFO. They're what we call full-stack creators.
Meaning they're doing it all themselves?
Pretty much. The report says 48% of these creator-led businesses are run entirely solo, one person doing everything.
That sounds completely exhausting. It's a direct path to burnout.
It is. Which is why AI has become the quiet, invisible operations layer for this entire economy. And I'm not talking about AI generating fake videos or whatever. It's much more practical. 75% use AI for content planning and brainstorming.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the really sophisticated creators, the ones who are scaling, they're using AI agents for community management, for moderation, for data analysis. Think about it. If you have a community of 500 paying members, you can't personally welcome every single one of them. You can't reply to every single post.
You never sleep.
You'd never sleep.
Yeah.
So you deploy an AI agent to handle the onboarding, to flag problematic comments, to analyze which topics are getting the most engagement. It frees you up to focus on the high-touch, high-value intimacy that people are actually paying for.
And that word intimacy brings us to what feels like the most critical piece of this entire puzzle. The report called it emotional safety.
This right here is the single biggest difference between the 2026 creator economy and the 2020 version. 73% of creators now view emotional safety not as a nice-to-have, but as a core design requirement of their community.
Because if I'm paying you for access, I need to know that it's a space where I'm not going to get attacked, not going to get trolled. It has to feel safer than the open public internet.
It's the entire value proposition. I'm paying for a curated, safe space to be vulnerable and to pursue some kind of transformation.
Okay, so let's pause and pull all these threads together for a second. We've got a highly professionalized workforce of millions.
Right. It's a real job now.
They're building businesses by moving audiences off of the volatile, algorithm-driven social platforms
Off the rented land.
and onto their own owned land,
Yeah.
private paid communities.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep people paying month after month, they have to cultivate this deep sense of trust, of intimacy, and most importantly, of emotional safety. They're selling a safe space for transformation.
That is a perfect synthesis of the 2026 landscape.
Now, I want to take that entire framework, trust, intimacy, emotional safety, transformation, and I want to point it like a laser at one very specific, very uncomfortable topic.
Okay.
Because transformation can mean learn to code or get in shape. But what happens when the transformation being sold is get a new face.
This is where we cross the border. We're moving from business strategy into the ethical frontier, and this is where that Lund University thesis comes in. It's an analysis of influencers who promote aesthetic surgery.
And we should be very clear here. We're not talking about reconstructive surgery after an accident. We're talking about elective cosmetic procedures, nose jobs, BBLs, fillers, Botox.
And the central argument of the thesis is that these creators are engaged in the commercialization of humans. But it's so much more sophisticated than this simple advertisement. The entire dilemma hinges on the fact that these influencers present themselves as a trustworthy friend. Remember that emotional safety we were just talking about? They build that safety, they build that trust, and then they weaponize it. They leverage that deep personal connection to sell an invasive, risky medical procedure.
So the question becomes, how do they justify that? Not just to their audience, but to themselves. If I'm an influencer and I've spent years building this community that trusts me, how do I sleep at night after I've sold them on a rhinoplasty that has real, tangible risks?
That is the core of the thesis. And to answer it, the researchers use a framework called Boltanski and Thevenot's theory of justification.
Okay, you flagged this earlier. Break it down for us. Boltanski and Thevenot. What's the simple version?
Okay, the simple version is this. Imagine our social life is divided into different worlds, or orders of worth. Each world has its own set of rules and its own definition of what is valuable.
Okay.
So, for example, you have the market world. In the market world, value is determined by price, by competition, by efficiency. It's the world of business. A boardroom meeting takes place in the market world. Then you have, say, the domestic world. In the domestic world, value isn't about price. It's about tradition, trust, loyalty, personal relationships, hierarchy. It's the logic of a family.
And these worlds have different rules. You don't try to outbid your brother for the last piece of cake at Thanksgiving dinner.
Exactly. That would be a clash of worlds. It would feel wrong, offensive. Now, the genius and the danger of the modern influencer is that their entire job is to blur the lines between these worlds.
That's so.
They create content that feels like it's in the domestic world. They talk to you like a friend from their bedroom, sharing secrets. They build that trust, that loyalty. But they do it in order to execute a transaction that belongs in the market world, selling you a product, or in this case, a nose job.
They're smuggling market logic into a domestic setting.
That's a perfect way to put it. And to pull that off without the audience feeling betrayed, they have to justify their actions. They have to use what the sociologist C. Wright Mills called vocabularies of motive. They need to provide a story, a reason why they're doing this that makes it sound moral and acceptable.
And the thesis breaks down the three main stories or themes that they use. Let's walk through them. The first one is authenticity. They call it the transparency trap.
This is probably the most common justification you'll see. The argument essentially goes like this. It would be unethical for me not to tell you I had this surgery.
Because if I just showed up one day with a new nose and pretended it was natural, I'd be contributing to toxic, unrealistic beauty standards.
Precisely. So, in a very clever rhetorical move, the act of documenting and sharing the whole process, the consultations, the bruising, the blood, the bandages, the painful recovery, is framed as a moral obligation. I'm being real with you guys.
The thesis quotes one of them, Influencer 5. She says something like, I'm filming myself all day, every day. I'm constantly seeing my face from every angle. And she basically argues that fixing the parts she doesn't like is just part of her job, but being straight up about it is her duty to her followers.
It's a brilliant inversion. The act of marketing the surgery is reframed as an act of radical honesty. You see this most clearly in the recovery journey content. Think about Influencer 21. She documents everything. The depression she felt during healing, the identity crisis of looking in the mirror and not recognizing her own face.
To share that, to admit I don't recognize myself to a million people, that's an incredibly vulnerable thing to do.
It is, but from a structural point of view, it is a masterclass in building trust. In the language of the theory, it signals benevolence. It says, I am suffering, and I am sharing my suffering with you so that you can see the unvarnished truth. But here's the paradox.
Go on.
By building that deep domestic-style trust through her vulnerability, her eventual recommendation of the surgeon or the clinic becomes 100 times more effective than any billboard or magazine ad could ever be.
She is monetizing her own vulnerability.
100%. And you see these little linguistic tells in the captions all the time. Things like, remember guys, social media is fake. Or, I'm not going to lie, I have some regrets about this. These are disarming tactics. They preempt criticism. If I openly admit that I have regrets, how can you accuse me of thoughtlessly glorifying the procedure? And yet,
the discount code for the clinic is right there in her bio.
There it is. That's the market world poking its head through the curtain of domestic intimacy. It's the tell. It's like having a heart-to-heart with your best friend about their divorce, and at the end they try to sell you their lawyer's services for a referral fee. It's a clash.
That's a powerful analogy. Okay, let's move to the second theme of justification, empowerment and self-actualization. This feels like the my body, my choice argument, but for cosmetics.
It is. This vocabulary moves away from the language of honesty and into the language of healing. They use what's called the self-esteem vocabulary. The surgery is no longer framed as an aesthetic choice. It's framed as the final step in healing a deep-seated trauma or insecurity.
The story they used as an example from Influencer 15 was just heartbreaking. She talked about having these genetic fat pads under her eyes her whole life.
Yes. And she tells the specific, vivid story about being 8 years old, and an adult told her she looked tired all the time. So she started putting cold spoons on her eyes every morning, trying to fix it.
An 8-year-old girl. That kind of comment sticks with you forever.
It does, and by sharing that story, she creates this powerful narrative arc. The surgery she gets as an adult isn't just a purchase. It's the climax of a lifelong struggle. It's positioned as a triumph over a childhood wound.
So when she's promoting that specific surgical procedure, she isn't really selling the procedure itself. She's selling the resolution to that pain she just made you feel.
She's selling relief. She's selling the end of the story. And then alongside that, you get the more assertive, almost defiant justification, like Influencer 6, who just says, it's my face, I want to do with it what I want. This taps directly into a core human value, what the framework calls self-direction, autonomy.
Don't you dare tell me what to do with my own body.
It frames the choice as a powerful, almost feminist act of taking control. I am the master of my own vessel.
And the thesis proposes something really interesting here, a potential addition to the theory. The authors suggest that we might be seeing the birth of a whole new common world, the world of beauty.
This was my favorite part of the paper. It's fascinating. They argue that within the influencer economy, beauty itself has become a legitimate, standalone justification for action. In this world, the rules are different. Physical alteration isn't seen as vanity. It's seen as a valid measure of success and self-worth, just like getting a promotion or a university degree is in other worlds.
So, to put it crudely, in the world of beauty, getting a BBL is the equivalent of getting an MBA.
Functionally, yes. In that specific world, it's viewed as a strategic investment in the self. It's an asset that you acquire to increase your overall value. So from within that worldview, it's not vain, it's smart. It's a good
Okay.
business decision.
Which is a perfect segue into the third and final theme they identify: fulfillment and the market. This is where the lines between the person, the product, and the provider just seem to completely dissolve.
Yeah, this is where it gets really blurry. You start to see influencers positioning themselves not as customers of the surgeons, but as collaborators, as equals. The example of Influencer 22 is just mind-blowing.
TikTok trend,
In
right?
the TikTok trend, there was this viral audio trend where you show the person who changed your life, and it's usually a partner or a parent or a best friend. She did the trend from her hospital bed with her surgeon standing over her.
Wow. That is that is an incredible blurring of the domestic and market worlds.
It's an annihilation of the boundary. It
Yeah.
elevates the surgeon from a service provider to the status of a life-changing partner. The unspoken message is, we created this new me together. It's a co-production.
And in this section, we also see the theme of celebrity emulation. Influencers being very direct, saying things like, my goal is to look like Bella Hadid, or I brought in a picture of Leah Michele.
Right, which taps into the human values of conformity, wanting to fit a certain ideal and stimulation, the thrill of change and newness. But even as they're talking about all this self-fulfillment and partnership, you have to notice the commercial reality that is always, always humming just beneath the surface. The content is littered with paid partnership disclosures and affiliate codes.
Use my code NDA15 for money off your treatments.
That's the tell. That's the glitch in the matrix every time. You can wrap it in the language of trauma, of empowerment, of authenticity, of self-direction. But the moment that discount code appears, you are slammed right back into the cold, hard logic of the market world. The sale is the ultimate objective.
Okay, let's try to synthesize all of this now. We started with the macro view, a $191 billion economy, a massive professionalized industry.
Right.
And we established that the primary fuel for this industry in 2026 is no longer just shallow views. It's deep intimacy, it's community, it's emotional safety.
Absolutely. That's the new currency.
Then we looked at cosmetic surgery as the ultimate high-ticket, high-risk item that an influencer can promote. It requires the absolute highest level of trust from an audience.
You're not going to let someone put you under anesthesia and rearrange your face based on a recommendation from someone you don't deeply trust.
So here's the connection I'm making. Does the intense economic pressure of the 2026 creator economy, the need to escape the algorithm, the need for stable recurring revenue, the need to avoid burnout by building a moat around your community, does that pressure actually incentivize this kind of extreme calculated vulnerability?
I think that's the critical link. That's the engine driving all of this. The business model of 2026 requires the creator to bleed for their audience. It demands vulnerability as proof of authenticity. And whether you're sharing a story about a failed business venture to sell your new marketing course, or you're sharing your post-rhinoplasty recovery diary to sell a clinic services, the underlying mechanism is identical.
Authenticity is the currency used to build trust.
And trust is the asset you cash in for the sale.
So the more vulnerable you are willing to perform, the more potential revenue you can generate.
In many niches, yes. And that creates a really perverse incentive structure, doesn't it? If the act of fixing yourself is profitable, you are constantly economically incentivized to find new flaws to fix. Your insecurities become inventory.
It all comes back to that illusion of friendship, what the academics call the parasocial trap. There's that quote from Influencer 10 that just sends a chill down my spine. She says to her followers, "You're not ugly, you just need a little help."
It sounds so caring. It sounds exactly like what a kind best friend would say to you over a glass of wine when you're feeling down about yourself.
But a best friend doesn't get a 15% commission when you book the appointment.
And that's the fundamental dissonance of our time, isn't it? We are living in an era where the boundary between friend and salesperson has been systematically and deliberately dissolved by the user interface of the social web.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've gone from the plain text, command line world of Usenet, where people shared code and jokes for the sheer joy of connection,
All the way to the 4K video-documented surgery recoveries of 2026, where sharing your physical trauma has become a highly calculated marketing strategy.
The creator economy has definitely grown up. It's not a hobby anymore. It's an industrial complex, it's professional, it's sophisticated, and it is massive.
But as it's grown, its core commodity has shifted. It's moved from selling broad attention to selling deep intimacy. And we just have to be aware as consumers of this media that this intimacy now comes with a price tag attached.
It really leaves you with a difficult question. If the primary currency of this entire $191 billion economy is authenticity, what happens when that authenticity is itself a manufactured product?
It forces you to ask, when you join one of these communities, are you really a member? Or are you just a customer in a very, very sophisticated, vulnerability-based marketing funnel?
And that's the thought we want to leave you with. The next time you're scrolling and you see one of those raw, vulnerable, I'm not okay posts from a creator you admire, just pause for a second. Look at the hashtags. Look for the partnership disclosure. Look for the link in the bio. And just ask yourself, which world of justification is this post really operating in?
Is this the domestic world of friendship and genuine connection? Or is it the market world of the sale, just wearing a very convincing disguise?
Thank you for going deep with us today. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.